John Miller looked out over the rolling hills of his late father's farm, seeking solace. He found bulldozers. A woman in a crisp polo shirt, Linda Harris, stood directing the chaos. Right there. That's the perfect center line for runway 22. Excuse me, John said, his voice calm. This is my land. Linda turned. A patronizing smile plastered on her face. Ah, you must be John. Your father never was a team player either. This isn't your land. It's part of the HOA's common area for community enrichment. John gestured to the stakes driven into his wheat field. Enrichment. The Soaring Skies Estate's private airport, she announced. We've sold 20 hangar memberships already. It's a shame your plot is right where our secondary runway needs to be. You'll be fined for any obstruction. John protested, but the board mocked him. They cited obscure bylaws, threatened liens, and dismissed him as a simple farmer who didn't understand vision. They had no idea that his life in Washington, D.C. was spent immersed in a very different kind of vision, federal aviation regulation. As the new director of the FAA, John saw the violations piling up faster than the asphalt. No environmental impact study, no permits, no safety zones. The runway was a death trap, pointed directly at a hill and riddled with substandard materials. Instead of shutting it down immediately, he bided his time. He played the aggrieved, overwhelmed landowner, secretly documenting everything. He reluctantly signed their heavily revised easement, letting them believe they had won. His only condition, presented as a desperate plea, was that they hold a grand opening, so he could see the community's achievement. Linda agreed, gleeful at his apparent surrender. The day of the opening was a spectacle. Dozens of residents gathered, sipping champagne. A small Cessna, piloted by a friend of John's from the FAA, was poised for the maiden landing. Linda stood at a microphone, crowing about her triumph. Just as she introduced the plane, a dark sedan pulled up. John stepped out, not in his farm clothes, but in an impeccably tailored suit. He walked straight to the podium. Linda, he said, his voice amplified across the field. That was a lovely speech, but you forgot to mention a few things. He took a document from his inside pocket. This is an FAA cease and desist order. This runway has no approval, violates every safety regulation in the book, and is now the subject of a federal investigation. The crowd gasped. Linda's face went white. The fines, John continued, his gaze sweeping over the board members, are substantial. Personally, for each of you, selling unregistered hangar spaces? That's fraud. And as for your pilot, he nodded to the Cessna, which taxied to a stop. The cockpit opened, and the pilot waved, flashing his FAA inspector badge. This airport is closed, John declared. Permanently. The story made national news. HOA's illegal runway shut down by FAA director in his own backyard. Linda Harris and the board were ousted, faced financial ruin, and were left with a useless strip of cracked pavement. The shortest-lived airport in American history. John Miller finally got his peace and quiet, looking out over his farm from the porch, the only thing soaring above it now being the birds.